Hello and welcome to the AIA Austin Women in Architecture Site Tour number 3 for 2021. I'm Nkiru Gellis. I'm the chair for 2021 of the Women in Architecture Committee. Our mission at WiA is, as always, to promote, validate, and illuminate the role of women within the architectural field through fostering community, fellowship, education, and outreach. And we are very proud of the way we've been able to pivot to the completely virtual site tours this year. And as we tiptoe towards opening up here in Austin, it's our absolute pleasure to be able to present this wonderful project, the Hotel Magdalena, a Lake Flato design bunkhouse hospitality project. A special thank you to our event sponsor today, Sierra Pacific Windows, who were responsible for the wood exterior doors and windows for the hotel project. And in addition, our committee sponsors are what make the programming possible. We'd like to thank Artisan Hardwood Floors, Gus Bernal Videography, Indoor Weather Professionals, McCoy Rockford Commercial Interiors, McKinney York Architects, MMD Architects, Michael Shue, Office of Architecture, Miller Digital and Imaging Solutions, Page, Pilgrim Building Company, Fluger, Rogers O'Brien Construction, and Storybuilt. Thank you so much to all of our sponsors. The site tour subcommittee chair is Randy Davis, and we say a huge thank you to Randy for all of her hard work and commitment to our mission and in coordinating the site tour. Randy Davis enjoys working with project teams during the construction phase to find creative solutions for project success. In 2018, she relocated from Maryland to Texas to join Nelsen Partners as construction contract administrator in Austin. In her work with the Women in Architecture Committee and as president-elect of the Austin CSI chapter, Randy seeks to share the stories of project teams and their lessons learned, highlighting the impact of collaboration in the built environment. Her current projects include the new 31-story Hyatt Centric in downtown Austin. So with that, I will hand over to Randy, who will be the moderator for the event today. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Nkiru. Thank you for your outstanding leadership of the AIA Austin chapter of WiA. And thank you everyone for joining us today for our third virtual site tour of 2021. When the design of this project started in 2014, the COVID-19 pandemic was not on our radar, and double-loaded interior hallways were standard fare for hotel guest rooms. The use of mass timber was generating a buzz in the construction industry with the potential of reducing the carbon footprint of our buildings and the allure of a crafted exposed wood product. But it wasn't until 2015 that the IBC included language for the use of cross-laminated timber, CLT, in types 3, 4, and 5 construction. What was it about this team that drove them to be early adopters of building with mass timber and to design a hotel where connection to outdoor spaces is understood to elevate the guest experience? The panelists today are two architects from the firm of Lake Flato, a structural engineer from AEC, a landscape architect from Eyck, and two managers from Bunkhouse, one who focuses on brand management in the development of new offerings, and the other a general manager responsible for day-to-day operations and the guest experience. The collaboration of this team has resulted in a project that has become synonymous with the Austin experience. At the conclusion of our tour, we will have a discussion with the panelists and then a brief survey. Please feel free to enter questions at any time into the Q&A. We want to hear from you. And now it is my pleasure to introduce one of the leaders and an associate in Lake Flato's Austin office, Sophia Razzaque, AIA.
Hi, I'm Sophia Razzaque. I'm a native Austinite, born and raised. I left for 10 years and came back in 2010. In that time, I worked in New York City as well as London. I worked for Michael Shue, Office of Architecture here in Austin prior to joining Lake Flato's Austin office in 2016. I've been fortunate to work on several hospitality projects of varying scales, I love the opportunity that comes with working on these types of projects where you get the chance to work at both the more intimate residential scale for the guest rooms, while also having a hand in creating meaningful public space in the hotel amenities. Melina?
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Melina Phillips. I'm a project director at Flato and part of the urban development studio in our San Antonio office. I'm originally from Brazil. I also lived in Bolivia and Colombia. And with all this moving around, I really developed a love for cities and cultures. In architecture, most of my experience has been spent on hospitality projects, and I was involved on the Magdalena Hotel since the beginning of programming in 2014 through construction administration in 2020. And I'm really excited to be here and share this project with you guys. I'll pass it on to Christine.
Hi there. I'm Christine Skaglund from Eyck Landscape Architects. I'm a senior associate there, and I was project manager on the Magdalena project from late 2015 till, I say, continuing consultations, so going on 6 years now. I've been practicing in Austin for about 8.5 years, where my work spans many sectors from urban hospitality, boutique hotels like Magdalena, but also rural event spaces, university campuses, trails, public gardens, and single family residences. And previously I practiced in Southern California, where the bulk of my work concentrated on urban infill, mixed use podium type projects. I really enjoyed the diversity and challenges that inherently come with my profession. Ruthie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ruthie Norval. I'm a senior engineer with Architectural Engineers Collaborative, and I'm an Austinite, and I love working on projects in Austin. So Hotel Magdalena was fun. I've worked on many types of projects, including parks, hospitality, office buildings, high-end residential, and adaptive reuse. I absolutely love the give and take between art and engineering that results in beautiful structures every day. Meghan?
Hi, good morning. I'm Meghan Hughes. I'm the general manager of Hotel Magdalena. I have been with Bunkhouse for over 16 years. I have had the great fortune actually of operating 3 Lake Flato designed hotels, one of which is on the beach in Todos Santos, Mexico, just north of Cabo San Lucas. So I really had to rough it there for a couple of years. I moved back almost 3 years ago now to Austin and have been a part of the operation and opening of Hotel Magdalena. We officially opened in September of last year, and our 3 meal a day standalone restaurant opened in November. It's been an incredible undertaking, so much fun, and it really truly has been great to be able to fill the spaces with awesome employees and seeing our longtime guests rolling through the beautiful doors. On to Sophie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sophia Aurelio. I am the senior project manager at Bunkhouse. I focus on the brand management and development from the operations side. So I'm kind of a key player in making sure that all of the communication from the outside consultants into our internal departments is filtered through, and we have the chance to respond. I came from Kimpton Hotels. Prior to that, I worked in an architecture firm out of Dallas. I've been with Bunkhouse for 3 years now, and the Hotel Magdalena was my labor of love. So we're so excited to share it with you today.
Welcome to our tour of Hotel Magdalena. This project was a labor of love, as Sophie mentioned, and all of us on the panel were instrumental in making it a success, along with many others. We're going to start off with more background about the site history, existing conditions, and then an overview of the design intent and aspiration of the landscape and architecture before getting into the tour itself, where we will lead you through some of the key public spaces and a typical hotel room to give you an idea of the project as a whole. Now I'll hand it off to Melina.
All right, just some quick numbers to get us started. The hotel is about 104,000 square feet total area, out of which 74,000 is conditioned and 30,000 is unconditioned. So about 30% of the total area dedicated to these outdoor spaces, which really shows you the emphasis of the design. And then we have 89 Magdalena hotel rooms, 6 St. Cecilia suites, and 7 condos. And this is the first mass timber hotel in North America. Oh, there we go. Here's a site plan showing the context of the project. The Magdalena Hotel and condos outlined in red. It's located right off of South Congress at the top of the image. The main entry into the hotel portion of the project is off of Music Lane, and the entry into the residential portion from the Academy side. And all of the parking for the project is located on the Magdalena, what we call the Magdalena parking garage, which is really located across the street on the Music Lane development.
So I'll give you a brief history of the site where the Hotel Magdalena now sits. In the 1930s, all the way up until the 1970s, South Congress was the highway that connected San Antonio to Austin. As you drove into the city, there were many ultra-modern motor courts that were dappled along the street, leading up to the state capitol, which is larger than the nation's capital, and it was this big, beautiful moment. In the 1950s, Terrace Motor Hotel opened its doors with 366 rooms, 2 restaurants, the Char Grill Chop House and Summer House, which is actually the name of our restaurant currently, Summer House on Music Lane, opened its doors. It was the first convention hotel in Austin, and people came from all over the state to bring their families there to vacation, maybe to meet the singing barber that was greeting them down in the basement. In the 1970s, when I-35 came to be, a lot of the traffic in the area got rerouted. This led to the disrepair and sort of seediness that became South Congress. 1974-ish, Willie Nelsen came in and bought up 14 acres east of Congress, including the Terrace Motor Hotel. At the time, it was apartments. He had his friends and roadies and bands come and stay and hang out there. He actually had a falling out with a guy who owned one of the music venues downtown Austin. And he thought, you know what? I have this convention center. Why don't I turn it into a music venue? And so he did just that. It became the Austin Opry House. It was legendary for 30 plus years. And the likes of Eyck and Tina Turner and Dolly Parton came and played there. A guy by the name of Scott Newton was the resident photographer there. He actually set up his darkroom behind the stage. And so it was state of the art. In the 1970s, he would take photographs and then process them. And there's these beautiful images. Today in the guest rooms at the Hotel Magdalena, there are 2 precedent images from Scott Newton in each guest room. They're beautiful. They really showcase the era and the moment that was the 70s and 80s in Austin. Today, we now have, as Melina said, 89 guest rooms for Hotel Magdalena, all situated on 1 acre. It really is a testament to how beautiful the space is and how amazing we've made that. On to Christine.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the site now. These before and after photos show the similarity of building massings between the terrace apartments on the left side and the new hotel development on the right. Much of that decision on the design team was in order to protect the 7 heritage oaks shown in the red dashed circles. The existing conditions were very constrained, with small planting areas retained by walls and surrounded by tons of asphalt. We significantly improved the rooting conditions of those trees. This plan shows the new design with the buildings oriented around the perimeter and courtyard green spaces central to the project. The exterior streetscape is highly urbanized, 1 block off South Congress, while the interior is a secret and peaceful oasis that is not revealed until entering the project. The overarching design inspiration was that of a 70s lake house within the context of dramatic hill country geography. Local materials were utilized and a thread of water conveys across the site. And this diagram better depicts the elevation changes across the site, which measures about 1 acre with 29 feet of grade change left to right. Sorry about the trash pickup outside. The 4 buildings have multiple finished floor elevations, making ADA access challenging. Also, all stormwater is held on site, making drainage especially challenging. Surface flowing rainwater across the steep quarry block wall, which then conveys under pedestrian bridges to design rain gardens at the lower level. Building downspouts hard pipe to underground cisterns under the event lawn. The inset photo shows the cisterns being installed in solid limestone. The water in the cisterns is reused for landscape irrigation. And this photo shows just how much asphalt was removed from the terrace apartments. What was essentially a paved parking lot is now our interior courtyard, with a significant reduction in impervious cover. And these photos show the completed pool in the upper courtyard, the quarry block retaining wall and spring fountain, and the event lawn, which covers those cisterns, is screened from the restaurant terrace by this culinary garden berm. And I think I tossed to Sophia.
Yes, I'll just give a brief overview of the architecture. So here's an overview of the different buildings on the site to help orient you. Buildings A, B, and C are mass timber type 5A construction over 1A podium. For buildings A and B, as C is slab on grade. Building D is type 2A, mostly concrete structure with steel for the framing of the penthouse only. Building D is split between hotel and condo residences with the penthouse spanning both wings at the top. This diagram showing what was allowed by zoning due to the site location being between the residential neighborhood to the east and South Congress retail area to the west. You can see how this shaped the overall massing, and the scale does feel appropriate when you are on site. The trees buffer the scale of the condo building to the east from St. Cecilia. And here is a time lapse we put together from the aerial photos that the contractor sent us over the course of the project to kind of help show the sequencing of the project. The concrete started first, then the mass timber, with buildings A, B, and D happening first, and then C came in last, basically once the landscape was complete. And now I'll hand it to Melina.
All right. I don't know if we can clear the annotations there, but
yes.
Yeah, so our finished palette had a variety of materials. The hotel portion of the project mostly consisted of stucco volumes over stone and with sunken groove wood siding in the recessed porches and some other areas like at the restaurant down below. The exterior wood structure, both framing and the decking were all dug for as well, but they were finished in a weathered gray stain that we coordinated with Structure Craft on. And then the residential portion of the project, which is on the right, it was wrapped all in 2 Norman 5 brick blends. And after mock-ups and dry stacks and all that, we also had to work with Acne on rerunning a couple of the color blends. Well, one of the colors actually had to be run twice, but we were able to figure it out despite the really busy manufacturing queue that they had at the time. I'll clear. Okay. The mass timber used in the project was not only driven by performative and biophilic aspects, but it was also a way to celebrate the history of the site. As you know, you can see on the top images of the Austin Terrace Motel from the 1950s. The V columns were a major source of inspiration, which is the image on the left, and then the lattice wood structure, which you can see in the pool restaurant on the top right. And the hotel rooms were also really heavily inspired by Judd's work. The simple wood volumes, and also his apartment and studio in New York City, which you can see in the center image. The left image shows a conceptual sketch of the hotel, of buildings A and B anyway. and showing the mass timber scope at the top, which houses all the hotel rooms, and the concrete podium at the bottom, where the assembly spaces are, like the event space, the restaurant, the lobby, and all the back of house areas. This configuration of the timber over concrete podium allowed us to have the desired number of floors within the height restrictions outlined by code, as well as provided a inherent 3-hour separation between the timber scope and the concrete scope below. The concrete podium also helped us resolve the change in elevation that Christine was talking about between the inner courtyard and the street level, creating this sort of like a half a basement condition. The detail in the center is the exterior wall of the guest rooms right here, and where they meet the exterior walkways right there. The exterior buildup of the flooring, you can see a zoom in on the right versus gapped. They're basically 2x4s on one end that are spaced with rubber gaskets and held together by stainless steel rods. And they sit directly above wood beams and that are spaced about 8 feet apart. The interior buildup, we have concrete topping over acoustic mat over the DLT panel, which is the dowel laminated timber, that are essentially 2x6s on one end, held together by these 3/4 inch wood rods that are hydraulically pressed. And the panels also come with that layer of plywood sheathing that you can see right there. And in the beginning of the project, StructureCraft was designing everything to be the nail laminated timber, but as the project developed, their products also developed, and so they came out with the dowel laminated timber, which we all preferred since it was a all wood product. And here you can see some images showing that erection process. On the left, you see the aerial of building A with the stacks of prefabricated walls sitting right on top. And here we have a video. Sophia, if you want to play that. Just showing that erection process. You see the crane lifting the panels using straps through these prefabricated holes and being put into place. And the images on the top right show the floor panels being lifted into place. And the image at the bottom right shows the shaft walls for building A stairs and elevators being put in place as well. And here just a before and after of the bones on the left and the finished product on the right. Our office also did a Lca analysis after the project, and we found out that by using mass timber for the 3 hotel buildings instead of concrete and steel, we were able to reduce the global warming potential by 10 to 38%, depending on if biogenic carbon is included in a calculation or not. And the use of mass timber also helped us further reduce the carbon footprint. One, because the single loaded corridors that are typically enclosed and conditioned were pushed to the exterior and being completely outdoors. And then 2, by exposing the mass timber on the interior, there were a lot of finished materials that were also not necessary. And I'll hand off to Ruthie.
Thanks, Lena. So as the structural engineer, our work usually gets covered up. So it's very fun to be on a project like this where we can showcase the structure. There were actually 2 structural engineers on this project, like people have been mentioning. My firm, AEC, did the base building up to the PT podium slab for the hotel buildings A and B, as well as all of the structure for the DC and DH buildings. And then StructureCraft did the mass timber levels that sit on top of our podium at the hotel buildings. So on the right, you can see a few pictures of our PT podium slab at building A. And as you can see, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of pre-construction coordination that occurred to make sure that we were accounting for all of the load-bearing walls from StructureCraft above, as well as shear wall hold downs and column loads that were provided to us for the wood structure. Because our podium slab is PT, the coordination had to be spot on because we knew there wouldn't be able to be any post-installed anchors or hold downs into this slab. So these are a few of our typical details on the left, showing the wall anchors and shear wall hold downs connecting down to the PT slab through the topping slab. So it was critical that we had a separate topping slab for a few different reasons. First, the finished floor condition, both in the rooms and out at the breezeway at the lower level, is concrete. We needed that beautiful architectural finish that you see as the final result, rather than taking our chances with the PT slab finish. Secondly, the topping slab was ground down to expose the aggregate. This required that we use a different aggregate. A small diameter washed river rock was used for the topping slabs to give them the desired finish, rather than a typical larger sized limestone aggregate that we use in the structural slabs. Finally, separating the topping slab from the structural slab below allowed us to add an insulation layer. This rigid insulation allowed for the built-in slope at the balconies, separation between unconditioned space above and conditioned space below, and protection of the waterproofing layer. So I mentioned that the topping slabs were ground down to expose the aggregate. While we ended up with a gorgeous final product, there were a few bumps along the way. These 3-inch topping slabs were poured during the summer, which meant that the slab was already very prone to shrinkage cracks, of which we had a lot. The control joints weren't installed in the right time frame, and so the cracking of the slab had already begun when it was realized that they hadn't been placed. So when you take the small shrinkage cracks that you can see in the first polish photo and grind down the top layer of the slab, the cracks become a lot more prominent, as seen in the second polish photo. Ultimately, at the suggestion of the concrete subcontractor, an epoxy concrete repair product was poured into the cracks before a final round of polishing. As you can see, the slab looks great after its final polish. One final interesting structural coordination item was the column bases. Originally, the columns would have sat on top of the topping slab and insulation floor sandwich. However, because of StructureCraft's very tight installation timeline and lack of availability of higher compressive strength insulation, the concrete column base plinths had to be poured first. This allowed for the topping slab and the breezeway to be poured later while mass timber installation continued. So now I'm going to pass back to Sophia, who will talk about the public spaces in the hotel.
Thanks, Ruthie. To orient you, box 1 in the aerial photo shows you where the entry to the site begins along Music Lane, with the Valet Lobby at grade and the lobby above it. The green box is where the restaurant is located, also at the lobby level. The orange number 3 shows you where the event space and event lawn are located, also on that same level. And the blue box is where the pool bar is located, which is accessible via an exterior stair in the courtyard. Here's an overview of the entire tour route, starting at the entry, moving through the public spaces, then visiting the upper level walkways and a typical room, and finally ending via the main elevator back down to the elevator or to the valet lobby. Guests arrive at the street under the custom designed heavy timber framed porte-cochere. It has those V column references Melina talked about. And you're invited to take the stairs up and around the heritage live oak tree that Christine mentioned earlier, leading to the lobby above. Along the way, you get that sense of compression under the bridge and then release out into the oasis that is the courtyard. You hang a right and see the lobby with its large pocketing door open, pulling you into the space where you're greeted by one of the many super friendly hotel staff to welcome you in. Lake Flato worked collaboratively with Bunkhouse on the design of the interior spaces. They designed the desk and we worked with them to make sure their functional needs were met and power and data was provided as needed. Bunkhouse early on had an inspiration photo of the terrazzo floor they were envisioning, and we worked with them on the pattern and documentation so that the contractor knew what the expectations were. The big architectural design moves were to tuck the seating area into a bay window that hangs you above the street below, while the large pocketing sliding door allows the lobby to spill into the courtyard. Christine?
Now I'll talk a little about the construction of the stacked looters quarry block wall that retains about 15 feet between the upper pool courtyard and lower event lawn and restaurant terrace. The fountain springs from the limestone inspired by a natural hill country seep. The plantings are all native or adapted. This series of imagery shows the engineered construction detail for the quarry block retaining wall with planting terraces and a plan view of that same detail at the top left, a SketchUp 3D export of the actual designed conditions color-coded for clarity on grading below that. This diagram was actually heavily used in the field by the landscape contractors for construction. And on the right, you see half that quarry block wall constructed, including tree installation, leaving the right-hand side open for access to the lower level. At that point, the lower terrace would be closed off. At that time, once that's closed off, the lower terrace will be closed to heavy machinery. Everything will have to be hand installed. They used a forklift with straps to place each block following base preparation, which included compacted aggregate. The last blocks had to be placed from above with a skid steer to reach out over the top of the wall. And at that point, everything's closed off, as you can see in the right-hand side. And I think Sophie is going to talk about the restaurant now.
Yes, so if you turn to the left instead of going to the right to the lobby, you'll hit our 3-meal restaurant summer house. It was extremely important to us that we captured the natural, casual, earthy, rebellious nature of Austin in this restaurant, and then it really embraced that unique experience and really focused on that exterior portion of the site. The design and feel is a nod to Austin in the 70s lake culture. We wanted it to feel sophisticated but unpretentious with an air of sophistication. The heart of the restaurant is the open kitchen with a wood-fired grill. Bringing the look and feel of a lake house weekend with friends into the heart of the city was the main kind of design push in this restaurant area. There are 100 seats, 40 interior and 60 exterior, again, focusing on that exterior courtyard element and that permeability to the nature. The appeal was to get the neighbors involved as much as possible, as well as the South Congress tourists and hotel guests, so it truly felt like a neighborhood spot. As you can see here, we took a design nod from the existing, or the old 1950s summer house restaurant, and had the lattice ceiling be kind of one of our large moves on that ceiling plane. Unfortunately, codes have changed since the 1950s, and you're no longer allowed in health code scenarios to do a truly open ceiling over the kitchen and over anything that is food service related. So we had to kind of adapt it as necessary during the design process to keep that spirit, but to bring it up to the 21st century codes. It was important to us that the interior of the restaurant and the exterior felt one and the same. The Lake Flato gave us such a beautiful palette along with the landscape architect to create these lush gardens, and we wanted the inside to reflect that. So we went with natural materials, things that you would find in a lake house environment, as well as keeping the main color scheme green so that your focus was always back out into that exterior courtyard. Moving through after you hit the restaurant and you continue onto that lobby level, you'll hit our event space. We have 1,500 square feet interior space, as well as 1,500 square feet on the lawn. The large design move was to open the interior to the exterior for a truly seamless experience for a maximum of 200 guests. It's been extremely well received. And Meghan is going to talk a little bit about some of the programming that we have.
So Bunkhouse is legendary, I would say, for some of our cultural programming. We have been able to include many local musicians that we partner with over the years. We actually have just installed down in our Valet Lobby a song confessional box that is a true confessional. And you go in there, you record a story about your life, sinners and saints alike. And we have a musician partner with us, and they'll do a residency every quarter. So they'll stay for 5 days. At the end of their 5 days, they'll do a DJ set at the pool or do an acoustic set out on the lawn. And they will also pick at random somebody's story from the confession box and turn it into an original song and press it on a 7-inch vinyl. We've done lots of concert series, movie screenings, yoga on the lawn. We've partnered with Free People to do some really fun jogs around Town Lake, and then you come back and have a cocktail from our food and beverage team. We've also had lots of great weddings and corporate events alike. So the indoor event space is the first of its kind for the Bunkhouse brand, 1,500 square feet of indoor space with full AV capabilities. And then at night, it can transition into a fun party space. Directly above the event lawn is actually our Bridal Suite, which has a 600 square foot outdoor patio, as well as a parlor where we can have business meetings, bridal brunches, all types of fun birthday celebrations. Our pool bar as well is an open air space that we can use for all kinds of event programming that looks out over that event lawn as well.
And as you can see here, we took that same nod from the summer house, and without the limitations from the food and health department, we were able to really create that massive lattice work ceiling that had to be installed in place. It was extremely challenging to get it up there, but it really makes the whole space feel very much of the time.
The pool with its sloping lawn was inspired by Barton Springs. Early design conceived of real turf, but it was quickly determined to be unsustainable for maintenance given the amount of pool water, foot traffic, and loungers in this location. Irregular looters paving comprises the deck and coping. Note that there is no joint separating the two. The railing was also added as a temporary measure to keep people from falling into the rain garden swale. So there was more than a few lessons learned on this project. The pool courtyard and outdoor pool bar offer views of the lower terrace and downtown Austin beyond. The roof of Arlen Studios, just to the right of this view, is screened from view with fast-growing sycamore trees. There's the pool bar that Bunkhouse was speaking of, and the semicircular concrete wall on the left is the last remaining vestige of the terrace apartments, having been protected during construction and sandblasted to match new adjoining walls.
The design of the pool bar was located in the heart of the project. The pool bar emphasizes the spirit of Magdalena, and the rest of the project takes a nod from local materials. We wanted this space to feel a little bit more playful as the nature of pools and the bathing culture of the 1970s in Austin. So while greens and natural beiges and browns are the focus in that kind of lobby and restaurant space, here we punched it up with a little bit more fun with the pops of that terracotta, electric orange, and then the deep blue for the pool.
Moving up to the top level, you can see the amazing 360-degree views of the courtyard and pool below, really recalling that hill country lake house vibe. Heading towards the bridge, here in a second. Heading towards the bridge, you can see the gapped versus solid DLT panels that make up the exterior walkways and porches. The solid panels help mitigate the noise of roller bags and hotel carts closer to the hotel room doors. The gap portion allows light and air through to the levels below, creating a warm and inviting feel. The bridge that we just walked over is part of our exiting strategy between the building A and building B hotel rooms. We wanted to tell a quick story about how during construction we had to have part of the bridge refabricated due to the conflict on site of the footing location, which would support the vertical columns above, and the tree limb we intended to save. We had a pretty significant change order to help make this happen, since it took some added engineering and refabrication of the 3 middle walkway panels and shortening of the adjacent panels to the left. Then at the end of the project, the fire marshal almost made us cut it anyway, but the property wrote a letter confirming that the branch will be maintained to not conflict with the sprinkler pipe. So basically, we had to cut the branch above, but we were able to keep the one below, which was a win.
Moving into the guest rooms, each guest room is laid out to showcase the connection to the exterior and interior spaces that we brought into the public areas. We let the structural elements be the star here, with that exposed river rock aggregate, as well as the dowel laminated timber ceilings. The tile walls in the bathroom, or in the vanity and the bathroom, are the feature and pop nicely against those neutral elements. We have 4 different color schemes: red, yellow, green, and blue, so that each time you come and stay, you have a little bit of a different feel. The FF&E, the furniture, was coordinated with those tile colors, and the tile was custom made for us in Spain to color match some of our RALs. So it was kind of a true labor of love for the rest of Magdalena, that, you know, there was no detail spared. And the pile pattern became kind of a key feature in that construction. The contractor was not super happy with us. The layout of the rooms is set up so that when you walk into the room, you'll hit a lounge first, then going into more of your workspace type environment at the desk, which functions as our mini bar. And then the desk rolls down into the headboard and focuses kind of again on that exterior. Almost all of the guest rooms have a private patio. The ones that don't do have large, 6x6 windows to showcase that exterior nature. And in order to kind of prioritize that sense of reflection, we've hidden the TVs behind the drapes. So that was a large scale coordination item that we found out in the model room that we really wanted to hit. And so because of that, we really had to get our TV, our bracket, and the wall dimensions really dialed in so that we could coordinate our ceiling tracks with the dowel laminated timber. So it was all thought through very early on and then executed in the field very well. I think Sophia's on mute.
I think you're on mute, Sophia.
Sorry. We're leaving the upper levels now to exit via the public elevator down to the Valet Lobby at street level. This doubles as our accessible entry and exit, as well as a place for people to wait for friends or for a ride. And this is where Meghan was talking about the song confessional, which you can visit at your next visit to the property.
It was important to us to have this last moment to touch our guests. Basically, we wanted this reprieve off of South Congress. So you can either come directly up the stairs and enter our lobby, or you have this more self-reflective moment, a little bit more quiet, that allows you to kind of both take in what you just saw and also get ready for your next adventure.
And that concludes our tour. Thank you again to all who made this project possible. I will now pass it back over to Randy.
It's a beautiful project. Thank you, everyone. So many great stories. I have a few prepared questions, and then we'll take our questions from our attendees. Starting with Sophia, the opening of the Austin Lake Flato office in 2016 coincided with you joining the firm and the anticipated construction start of the hotel. Could you summarize the collaboration between the San Antonio and the Austin offices and how the project evolved during the period between 2016 and 2018 when construction did commence?
Yes, it's a great question. I was super lucky at the point when I was joining the project. So prior to 2016, Lake Flato was in San Antonio, and so the whole team was there. When I joined was sort of a pause moment in the project when the GMP pricing came back and some value engineering needed to take place. So literally on my first day, I got to meet with the team sort of on the old site with the client team and talk about what the original aspirations were for the project, to really understand, what could be cut while still keeping the spirit of the project, which as a newcomer to the project was a really important and really helpful thing to be a part of. And then in the sort of, we helped, like Flato helped the ownership team kind of confirm, what we could do to get the budget back in line. And in the spring of 2017, Melina and I kind of updated the documents to be able to be repriced. And then 2018, we underwent this really awesome model room review process that really made a huge difference in the project. And a lot of the fine tuning of the details that you see now came out of that process. And so we were able to update the drawings prior to the construction getting too far along. So while they were doing site prep, we were able to do that model room process. So I was sort of, in addition to the team, boots on the ground, sort of managing things on the day-to-day here. Melina was my right-hand woman in San Antonio who knew the project like the back of her hand and was instrumental in making sure that the project was realized.
Well, that's an excellent way to get immersed in a project. I think anyone who's worked on hospitality projects knows the importance of the model room. So thanks for bringing that up. Melina, as you were at the table since the early program concept of the hotel, what were some of the discussions about how the project would distinguish itself from the other hospitality options in Austin?
I think that, from the beginning, the discussions were really focused on wanting to provide an authentic Austin experience, including, what we mentioned, the music culture, the lake culture, and also the Austin friendliness. And I think the goal was also especially key given the overwhelming speed at which Austin was growing and is currently growing. So it was really important for everyone involved to have that unique sense of place in the project and for that to be celebrated. The location was also a really way to, get us set up to a successful project, being right off of South Congress, which is a really, postcard of the city, vibrant location. And even though with all the growth that it's undergoing, I think it still gives that sense of old of the city of Austin. And the partnerships also with Bunkhouse and Eyck were really important. Bunkhouse known for their awesome, memorable programming, and like Flato bringing this connection to the land, be it the city or also the beautiful courtyards designed by Eyck. And also the design features that we discussed in the presentation, like pushing the circulation to the exterior and connecting the room to the outdoors instead of, the typical double loaded corridor or the hallway by the bathroom entry. We're really wanting to break away from that to make it a special place.
Well, you really captured that even though you were in San Antonio. So well done.
Team effort for sure.
Yeah. Ruthie, as a structural engineer, what were some areas of particular focus that you had in coordinating the structural design with the mass timber construction and the site conditions?
Yeah, sure. So working with another structural engineer on the project, we can talk structural engineer to structural engineer and get a lot of coordination done. So our primary focus of coordination was between the podium and the mass timber construction above, and that focused primarily on the structural loading. So there's 4 levels of mass timber above. There's gravity line loads from their load-bearing walls. There's point loads from walkway and balcony columns. And there's shear wall hold downs that all have to be accounted for in our base building design. So our podium slab is 14 inches thick with post-tensioned and mild reinforcing, all to support the 4 stories of mass timber above.
And did you do the site visits yourself? Or
I did, yes. I went on, I joined both Melina and Sophia numerous times to look at all the levels. We went out for many site visits on this project.
A lot of coordination.
Yes.
Thank you. Christine, we talked a little bit about this. The elevation change of the site presents great opportunities for dramatic effect, certainly, but this could have had a significant financial impact on the project. Could you speak to the strategies that you use to work with rather than against this feature?
Sure. Well, I would say that retaining 15 feet of grade is going to come at a cost, regardless of the method. We definitely explored a variety of options. I think Sophia briefly touched on the fact that there was a significant value engineering phase to this project. So we had documented a completely different concept. At the end, when we started talking about how to retain this hillside, we felt that maybe dry stacked stone would be one of the more economical ways to achieve that. And that sort of evolved from more of a traditional natural ledge stone to what I think is a little bit more of an architectural solution of the cut quarry block stones. And because they're dimensionally cut, it really allowed us to be very precise with our grading, which was necessary here since the site is so tight and the grading is so tight. So what was born out of an actual economical and practical decision really worked in our favor, especially with the undulating lines of the wall and enabling that to be planted and vegetated. So it wasn't just a sheer retaining wall, but more of a landscape feature for the project.
Well, thank you. I think we all find that sometimes the constraints can be our best friends. So it helps to go through that process of exploration. Hugely successful. Sophie, in your work to develop and manage the Bunkhouse brand with the many stakeholders, timelines, and budgets, could you share how you keep your eye on the ball and resolve competing priorities?
Sure. Communication is key. As the brand project manager, it's my responsibility to make sure that while the individual project team members are working on their immediate issues, I'm making sure that the overall project is on track on both our schedule and our budget. I have a heavy hand in working with the owners during the concepting to make sure that we have a realistic timeline in place, as well as preliminary budgets based on where we want to hit in our market concept. At each stage of the design process, we also then check back in constantly with those master documents to make sure that they're still realistic, that there aren't unexpected challenges that we need to account for, and we can help identify risks to that hotel opening date, which is kind of king in ownership's mind. I'm in a unique position to fight for the project team from ownership and other stakeholders when we need more time on these immediate deadlines, and reprioritizing things to allow the design process to take its course without sacrificing that overall project schedule. There are always going to be competing priorities and fire drills, so to speak, but by taking a global look at the project and shuffling things around, you'll hit your main milestones and hotel opening date won't change, but it does give us all a little bit more breathing room. I think something Bunkhouse does really successfully is that we bring on our key operations people very early on in the process, a year out from opening. So we're still very much under construction when we brought Meghan back from Todo Santos to be the GM. So she really got to be a true part of the team and help kind of shepherd in that last level for taking it from construction and kind of concepting into operations and how we use the space today.
Well, Sophie, your role in the project is so important because you have that experience and you have to stay kind of ahead of everyone to show them what's needed for Bunkhouse. And I think it's great that you could join us today and explain that to us. Meghan, as the general manager, I imagine you're managing the guest experience on a minute-by-minute basis. Can you speak to the reality or operational challenges that can impact the vibe? Are there Bunkhouse signature events that needed to be communicated to the architectural team to accommodate this programming?
Yeah, so Bunkhouse works with the architect and owners early on to do what we call an experience map, where we sit in a room and we all kind of workshop who are our guests and where are they traveling from and what does the experience need to look like from the moment that they arrive in that valet lobby all the way through their check-in experience, any sort of events, food and beverage moments that they might have, all the way through to checkout. We realize that people are enamored with the space. And it's incredible. I love getting to work every day, walking up the stairs, winding through these heritage oak trees and feeling like, oh, I've arrived. So the guests have been really, truly just thrilled to be a part of it. And it's a lot of locals that have been loyal Bunkhouse fans for many years. They celebrate all kinds of major life moments at each of our properties, and now they're coming to do so at Magdalena. You know, we do have operational challenges with the small, area in which, physical area in which we have the property situated on and the two different planes that we're on. The guest travel path can be challenging at times. We have one main elevator for the guests to circulate throughout 4 buildings. And sometimes, rain can make things challenging to get around and move throughout the spaces. So we have opportunities there to continue to help find ways for our guests to feel comfortable and safe as they're circulating throughout the property, but it's nothing that one of our pina coladas can't fix. But I would say in general, the space has been really incredible. And the fact that we have a dedicated event space has been a game changer for Bunkhouse.
Well, thank you. I think it certainly shows. And we do have a number of questions from our audience. We're a little short on time. We can follow up with some answers directly, but I did want to ask this one question because it is so significant for this project, this mass timber project. Back to Sophia. The question is, how did the team make the decision to perform an LCA? How did the team view sustainability throughout the design and construction of the project?
That's a great question. I think the project was actually pretty aspirational in terms of its sustainability goals, even during the initial design. One of the unfortunate parts of value engineering was the photovoltaics that were planned to be on the roofs to help with the energy load of the project. But I would say keeping the mass timber, keeping the rainwater cistern strategy, which was actually sort of tied into, our site development permit. Those things, kind of having them baked in along the way, helped ensure that they made it to the finish line, which obviously are a huge part of the project as a whole. Like Flato in general, we typically like to do sort of post-occupancy studies of our projects, and LCA is something that we're kind of looking at for all our new projects. And we've been heavily invested in pushing mass timber for all types of projects. We did an office building in San Antonio recently with mass timber as well. So I think it was just sort of a natural part of our process.
Well, thank you. And it's, as was mentioned in the tour, it's great to hear, how the development of mass timber was progressing as you did the design and the changes that were made. So thanks for being an early adopter, and I think we all have a lot to learn from this. Thank you everyone for joining us today. As mentioned, this was our 3rd tour. Our 4th tour will be on September 30th. We'll be touring the new terminal expansion to Austin Bergstrom International Airport. And our plan as of now is to have a live event at the AIA Austin chapter house. We may do it as a hybrid event so we can maximize our attendees, but that will be our first return live event for this year. So I hope you'll be able to join us. And again, thank you to our panelists, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much, Randy.
For having us.
Thank you.
It was great.
Thanks.